Hey everybody, I just wanted to give you a quick update on what happened in DC this last week. Beth and I went out there for an athlete summit where we were discipling a bunch of CrossFit Games athletes, professional athletes, and it was just an amazing time. But I kind of want to give you a little backstory of kind of how this all has developed in the last few years. So some of you know my background. It was CrossFit. Before I came to the Lord, I was a full-time CrossFit Games or CrossFit coach and athlete, and that's what I did full-time. And then in 2014 at the CrossFit Open, I got injured, and that's what really brought me to my knees and brought me to the Lord. And I didn't even care about competing anymore. It didn't even matter. But in 2014, when I came to the sports CTS in Kansas City, the Lord started to really reignite my heart for using sports and fitness to reach the lost and train and equip young people to go to the ends of the earth through the gospel. And this word came to my mind in 2014. It was a CrossFit missionary. And so me and this other guy, Nick and Charlie, we started a CrossFit functional fitness gym on the missions training base here in Kansas City. And we had lots of vision for seeing, young people trained and equipped and sent to the ends of the earth and planting boxes or gyms all over. But nothing really super took off. We've seen some great things develop as far as like training tons of coaches to go all over the world, training lots of students to go further and harder for the gospel. It's really knit our community together and getting fit and healthy. And so we've seen a lot of benefit from it, but the Lord was showing me bigger stuff about really seeing the whole industry changed and even reaching higher end CrossFit athletes. So one of the top guys is Rich Froning. The Lord told me back then that with the same intensity that he goes after being the best in the world, that when he retires, he was going to be that same drive and vision and fervor for the Great Commission. And so I've always just kind of clung to that, but I've just been steadily, training and equipping young people, being here in Kansas City and stewarding the gym and really building our community and training coaches. It's been great. But in August of 2019, last year, a CrossFit Games athlete named Nathan Bramblett came and stayed on our couch and just absolutely ignited my heart for a deeper love for Jesus. I remember hanging around him. I was like, gosh, am I even saved? This guy was so on fire for the Lord. And we just had a whole week of just weeping before the Lord and going deeper with him and going deeper with each other. And so the Lord had really marked him a couple years prior. And when he got encountered, the Lord gave him a vision for really changing the whole CrossFit industry from one that's selfish to one that's selfless. And the Lord gave him this word that he was going to have 500 plus gyms in the U.S. or all over the world that were going to be a church to the unchurched with coaches as pastors. And when he told me that, it just really resonated in my heart. I was like, man, this is going to happen. I don't know how it's going to happen. And then the Lord told him that his job in 2020 was to press people to Kansas City in the industry for thousands of coaches and athletes to gather in Kansas City in 2020 to change the industry. And so I was like, yeah, that's a great word. I love that. I don't know what that's going to look like. So he left and we just kept up communication. We just built this really deep bond. And then at 2020, when the year came around, he reached out to me, said the Lord told him that this was the year that he was going to do it. And I'm like, come on, I love it. Let's go. 2020, this is the year. And then COVID hit. And it was pretty, a lot of the things that we wanted to do. Our gym closed down for a while. It was rough. But what happened was these CrossFit Games athletes that Nathan had been reaching out to for the last 2 years to try to gather and mobilize to see the industry change had always been busy competing or training or stuff like that. And then COVID hit, all the gyms were closed and all the competitions were canceled, even the CrossFit Games. And so all these athletes came to Nathan and said, hey, I think now's the time. I think we need to gather. The Lord's really stirring our hearts to see the industry change. And so these 20 CrossFit Games athletes came to Nathan and said, we want help. We want to go deeper with the Lord. And so Nathan, me, a couple of the coaches, one of the coaches here and another staff member here, and the guy who runs the CrossFit ministry for YWAM in Kona, all gathered together as a team, and we started praying and asking the Lord what he wanted to do with these 20 athletes. And the Lord was just speaking to us about going deeper as a family, discipling them, pointing them to Jesus, and then mobilizing them to really change the industry. But it was going to be done through relationship. And so we just started to build a relationship with these guys, doing calls every week, going deeper with these guys and girls, and it was awesome. And then we broke off into smaller groups and started to disciple them one-on-one and disciple them in small groups, growing in the Word. Some of the testimonies were wild. Some of these athletes had never really even read the Word or heard from the Lord, and so they're hearing from the Lord for the first time and then acting. It was amazing. So really cool stuff. It's been an amazing few months, but the Lord was really stirring our heart for going even deeper. And so we really felt that we were going to call these athletes to DC to gather and to pray and to go deeper. And so we did. Last week we had our first athlete summit where we gathered these athletes and we went deep. We talked about just on the practical side. We met with some business people on how we were going to start these 500 gyms to be a church-to-the-end church, and how YWAM and business kind of move alongside each other to serve each other to really see the industry fully change, because there needs to be change in the industry. And so it was really neat to see all the business side of it, but even on the ministry side, there was just such breakthrough in these athletes. Years of stuff that had held them back were broken. Joy, repentance. There was a ladies' night where Beth actually got to go too. It was amazing. I can't believe we traveled being 36 weeks pregnant, but we prayed and the Lord told us to go. And so, these women all got together and did this thing called Brave Love, where we've been really contending for a women's movement. And one of the nights that they had, they called the men to war. And the next night we had a worship night, and all the men were really stirred to really rise up and call each other out and commit to one another, be vulnerable and go deep. And we just yelled out this battle cry that we were going to go to war, and it was just an amazing time. It was an amazing weekend. God did so much through relationship, and I was just amazed at all God had done this weekend. It was such a fun time. It was such a deep, rich time. These athletes were all marked and even committed their lives to be sold out for the gospel and to do anything and go anywhere for Jesus. I'm just getting kind of choked up even thinking about it. So really neat. We're expecting big things. And then this gathering in October 9th, 10th, and 11th in Kansas City, we're really going to start calling these athletes to really mobilize their influence, and to use their influence to mobilize people to be pressed to Kansas City, to gather, to worship and pray, and then have breakout sessions and strategize how we can map and measure reaching our whole industry for Jesus. Because I think some of the biggest spheres are sports and entertainment. Those are really huge avenues to reach lots of people, and we don't think it's just limited to sports and CrossFit and fitness, but even the sports industry. We're professional athletes, and there's been a couple, a quarterback and a couple ex-pro athletes on some of these calls that we've been having, some of these men's calls. So we really feel like God is moving in this area and using discipleship to influence these guys in a deeper way. So we're really excited. Please be praying for this industry. This is such all athletes are total leaders, and a lot of times it's an idol in their lives, but when they lay down their lives and they're fully submitted to the Lord, man, there's nothing can stop such drive submitted to the Lord. And so anyways, just wanted to encourage you guys. Thank you for praying. Thank you for really supporting us. We do lots of stuff with All America. We're seeing America reach for the gospel during this time. It's amazing, doing lots of discipleship online and through that. But that was just a cool little story that the Lord had done through my old thing that I really loved in CrossFit, and it was really neat to see how the Lord unfolded that over the last 6 years even to now. So God is so faithful to His promises. Thank you guys for praying, and there's your update.